Welcome back, Star Wars fans. Today is May the 4th, and may the 4th be with you, because today is Star Wars Day. And for this incredibly special day, I wanted to actually do something a little bit different and special as well. Today, I'm going to be ranking each of the 9 films in the Skywalker Saga, but not based on the movies themselves, but the soundtracks. And I think some of this might end up being really interesting for some of you. If you end up liking this video, please make sure to hit the like button down below so that it helps out with the YouTube algorithm as well. My name is Derek, and this is Star Wars Music Analysis. Do it. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of kickback about these rankings because everyone's going to have their own personal opinion, and I think that's amazing.
I love democracy.
All I ask is that you keep it civil in the comments below. But definitely at the end of this video, let me know the order you would put these 9 movies in as well. And as I went through these, one of the key aspects that I looked for was what new music or themes were created for each movie, and how well were they executed. I also looked at how the music actually played with the plot and character development. So it probably shouldn't come as any shock that at the end of this list are a few of the sequel era movies where the characters and plot just didn't have as much room to develop. And let's start with Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. It should be noted right away that John Williams is incredible enough of a composer that even the last ranked film has an incredible score in my opinion. But how much innovation can someone do after 8 other films and the intention of wrapping up stories and character arcs? We get some interesting moments like Ben Skywalker's theme becoming the major Kylo Ren theme, but overall, Williams did what was right for this movie and simply leaned on all of the themes and music that we had already built a relationship with over the last 40 years. However, I do think he could have taken a few more risks in this score, and one of the biggest letdowns for me was actually hearing the music for the trailer for Rise of Skywalker, and then never getting that epic rendition of Luke's theme anywhere in the actual movie. There are a lot of things that can be said about Episode 9, and they've already been said on other channels, but the fact that you give us this incredible setting of Luke's theme, where it pulls out of the minor chord at the beginning and has this overwhelming epic feel, and then don't give that same cue to us anywhere in the movie. I literally sat in the theater the first time I watched this, waiting for that music, and was horribly disappointed when we went through the entire throne room scene and it never happened. So, was it good music? Yes, but the music ultimately fell victim to the same fault as the plot and movie. It didn't take the risks it needed to or live up to the hype and expectations that we had for the end of the Skywalker Saga. Speaking of taking risks though, that brings me to number 8 on my list, The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi was a breathtakingly beautiful movie. The sunset battle on Krayt is one of the most memorable scenes for me in all of Star Wars. But ultimately, what do you do with the music for a film that didn't seem to know what story it was even telling? For a film that broke with everything you had likely set up in your themes and had hoped to develop throughout the rest of the trilogy. For Williams, it was to lean on the one remaining villain and see where that can take you. Kylo Ren's theme is powerful throughout this movie as we explore his character more. And there's an incredible moment happening during the Battle of Krayt that I plan to do a later video on, and it harks back to Richard Strauss's opera Elektra that deeply references the Resistance's hopes for Luke and his death, already determined by fate. One of the biggest complaints as a whole for The Last Jedi, though, is the lack of character development. And that can be tough for a composer who leans heavily on themes and motifs to tell the stories of the characters and develop them further. Couple that with a movie that's nearing the end of the saga, and you've really cornered one of the greatest, if not the greatest film composer of all time. Williams puts his full self into a soundtrack that didn't have the room he needed to expand and develop characters though, and what you're left with is an incredible, but ultimately forgettable soundtrack. The leap to number 7 might be surprising, but next on this list is episode 2 for me. And at first, I actually had this originally as the last position on this list. And again, I love all of these soundtracks. Creating this list was like choosing which kid you love more. But ultimately, the music for the other films just had more that I like. The one saving grace for Attack of the Clones, though, is the theme depicting the love between Anakin and Padme across the stars. This has become one of the most iconic themes from the entire saga, and it deserves recognition. However, Attack of the Clones ultimately suffers from the script and plot holes that bleed into the music, not having what it needs to feed off of as well, putting episode 2 as low as it is on this list. The movie is not without its strong moments, though, such as the epic Battle of Geonosis and the continuing energy that pushes through that entire section of the movie. At number 6 on this list, we finally get our first original trilogy movie with Return of the Jedi. And I need to state that when I was a kid, this was actually my favorite of the trilogy, and I still think I like it more than many Star Wars fans that enjoy trashing on anything they can find in the current malicious climate that we live in. But Return of the Jedi has some of the most iconic moments, including the introduction of Max Rebo. The eclectic music that's introduced into the galaxy because of the Max Rebo band can't be understated in terms of world building. And the emotional moment as Luke attacks Darth Vader in an effort to protect his sister Leia is incredibly powerful and easily eclipses the emotional finale to the sequel trilogy and the entire saga. However, like the sequel trilogy, Return of the Jedi suffers from its inability to invest greatly into new themes for storytelling. Additionally, the sound of metallic drums while the Ewoks play the plastic stormtrooper helmets has always driven me crazy as well. But ultimately, Episode 6 doesn't offer or introduce everything that the rest of this list can and does. Next on my list, at number 5, is The Force Awakens. One of the most exciting moments in experiencing the sequel trilogy was getting to learn about new characters, their backstory, and where their stories would lead. And while many of these storylines proved unfulfilling next to our oversized expectations, the music that accompanied these characters and that was greatly introduced in this movie, such as the themes for Rey, Kylo Ren, and the Resistance, served as incredible additions to the music. By including a scene at Maz's castle with diegetic music was a wonderful and welcome addition as well, even if the music itself felt like it was trying a bit too much. The Force Awakens was the moment when Williams first had to continue on without his other half in George Lucas. And if it hadn't been for John continuing in this sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9 would have seen even more of a pushback from fans. Speaking of fans, many fans have reservations about the quality of the prequel trilogy, and that all begins with some of the plot holes that are debatably found within Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. However, nobody can argue about how incredible the music from the beginning of the Skywalker trilogy was. John Williams came back to Star Wars after nearly 20 years, ready to amaze us all. Ask anyone about their most memorable moments from The Phantom Menace, and they will likely mention the epic lightsaber battle between Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Darth Maul. And to accompany this battle is the now iconic Duel of the Fates that every Star Wars fan gets a rush from hearing, even 20 plus years later. It's possibly the greatest music in all of Star Wars, and Williams had to recreate the music for the prequels without being able to rely on many of the themes and music that he had spent so much time developing from the original trilogy. And while many find the Gungan parade at the end to be over the top and cheesy, When we dig deeper and understand what Williams actually did in this scene, we realize it's one of the most genius moments ever as a film composer. But that's for another day. We also get this beautiful and soulful music at the funeral of Qui-Gon Jinn that I've always simply been in love with. And the music that plays during the pod race keeps us attentive and excited throughout the entire race in a way that only Williams can. John leaned on choir and voices in Phantom Menace like never before, and it paid off big for him and the overall story. Now, any of these final three could be number one on any day. However, I've put the original Star Wars movie at number 3 on this list. To begin this all from scratch, we can never underappreciate just how much Williams accomplished. This is where we first experienced that music of the opening crawl, the Force theme and the iconic binary sunset, Leia's theme, and the Rebel fanfare. The major reasons that I don't put this any higher is simply because of how heavily the score still relies on references to other music that we don't see as much in later movies. And while many times those connections can actually add to the mystique of Star Wars, it's also become a distraction over time. The other downside is that the Imperial March and Vader's theme are noticeably missing from this part of the story, albeit that's something that number 2 on this list quickly fixed. If we were ranking the movies themselves, Empire Strikes Back is on the top of most people's lists, including my own. And the music doesn't disappoint either, leaving this film at number 2 on my list. The Rebel fanfare is noticeably less present in this sequel to A New Hope, as it's overwhelmed by the new Imperial March and Vader's theme, just like the Rebel Alliance itself is overwhelmed by the Galactic Empire on the hunt for vengeance. In addition, the dark tones of this movie are perfectly balanced by the new theme of Master Yoda as well. It's one of the most ambitious themes for Williams at the time. The dark undertones I mentioned are powerful throughout, and they work well to pivot from the high climactic moments that are interspersed throughout. Williams definitely hit his stride and knew so much more of what he could do once an entire trilogy was officially on the table. He took the incredible work he did in the original Star Wars movie and only built onto it more, with an incredible amount of success. And we finally get to number 1 on this list, and let's just say I refuse to give away this film's high ground.
I have the high ground!
Because what don't we hear in Revenge of the Sith? I remember going to the premiere of this when I was a senior in high school, and afterwards just not being able to sleep because of everything I just witnessed and heard. Anakin finally turns to the dark side as we get full-on Vader cues. Palpatine shows his true colors as we get his theme, and as everything goes to Bantha Poodoo, we get the Battle of the Heroes as Anakin battles Obi-Wan and Yoda battles Sidious. It's an all-in, incredible tour de force that mixes in the Duel of the Fates as well as the music originally heard at Qui-Gon's funeral as we watch the Jedi be killed off during Order 66. I don't know how anyone who knew the entire storyline up to this point could go through the second half of this movie and not feel emotional constantly, and that is in no small part thanks to the music of Williams. At the time, Williams thought that this would likely be his last ever endeavor into the galaxy far, far away, and he goes all in. Every time I watch the final battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, I am left speechless at how Williams manipulates the score to tie everything in while never letting the energy drop. This scene will always be underrated, if only because it's so well and masterfully crafted that it's beyond our comprehension. The strained relationship between Anakin and Padme being reflected in Across the Stars yet again only adds more layers to the incredible movie that Revenge of the Sith is. But now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with my ranking, or would you put these 9 movies in a different order? Tell me what your order would be down in the comments, and tell me what you think about this ranking system. And before you go, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to learn more about the music of a galaxy far, far away. And as always, may the be with you.